Thursday forecast calling for an isolated shower late day, otherwise partly sunny, warmer afternoon, highs around 80. Thursday night, patchy fog before daylight, otherwise partly cloudy, lows around 60. On Friday, a chance of showers and storms in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny, highs once again near 80. By Friday night, chance of showers and storms, lows around 62. By Saturday, showers and storms likely, highs around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for letting us do what we do with you each morning as we do it, closer and closer to radio broadcast return as well. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll let you know what's going on there. Don't forget you can join us on May 25th as we kick off Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets. Starts at 10, Gypsy Hill Park in Stanton to benefit the VFW there as well. Lots to get into this morning. And, of course, you and me, we can break it down at 434-882-4217 live. I got this email, not to belabor the subject, but we were discussing, people come and go. It's not going to sit for 2 hours at a pop unless you're perhaps doing, coming in later on and watching in the reruns. This from Gene writes into JT in the Morning Radio at gmail.com on the discussion of more callers. I find it ironic that people send emails that say you should take more callers. Why don't they call? Well, I don't know. It's the variety of things. Generally speaking, and this goes back to when I was in rock and roll radio, if people... and I used to host a lot of call-in shows even then as well, that people generally weren't calling the request line, and I'll make the most basic comparison, the most popular song out there. They weren't calling the request line saying, hey, could you play Stairway to Heaven? No, they were calling to hear songs that they didn't hear all that much. So you would generally get calls for, can I hear Red Rider, or can I hear Deep Purple, or, you would get calls for things that weren't being played as much as Led Zeppelin. You weren't hearing calls for, hey, guys don't play enough Led Zeppelin here. And the same is true in talk radio. Mornings, are busy for people, so you're running around trying to do stuff. So it's on me and whoever does have time to call to add to that whole scene there. So, but, it is live and you're available to call. This one comes in, text from Dan, who says, where are some of your regulars, Joe? Are they not tuning in on the internet? Well, they may not be, and that may be the case. Folks like Joel and folks like that who are listening on the old smartphone app may not be. Just they go on and they go find something else to do. It's like the ending of the movie. Do you recall the movie The Truman Show? Wonderful kind of dystopian rebuke on both culture and media. Not the media culture, but culture and the media. And after Jim Carrey realizes that he's on a TV set, and it's not the real world at all, and he says to the camera, good morning, if I don't see you, good afternoon, and good night, or whatever, and then walks out the door and walks off the TV set, and Ed Harris takes the headphones off and slams them on the ground, and everyone is gobsmacked, and the whole community who had been watching this television program continuously for 30 years. This was everything they did. There were entire bars that were set up to watch this program. And at the end of the broadcast, the static comes on, and two guys who are security guards all the time watching the Truman Show. And one of the security guard looks at the other security guard and goes, You want to see what else is on? And that's what life is like in this industry. We try to, contribute to the daily travails, but it's your daily travails, not mine. And so we have to always be sensitive to the movings and the eddies and currents. That said, please, 434-882-4217. We'll get into the debate now, agreed to. I also want to bring up the point that it was President Biden, because there's been a lot of Virginia stories dealing with the fact that Virginia State University had been on the list of debate sites. And, you like that, by the way? We have a mic stand now as we rebuild the studio. Now I have both hands free, so I can actually do air quotes. But there's a lot of Virginia coverage over the debates. And there's a lot being said that, the historically black college and university leader, Virginia State University, was supposed to be getting one of these debates. What happened to that? And the implications are trying to make it seem like it was President Trump when it was really President Biden who picked these two dates, the September one and the one coming up on June 27th. And so this characterization that somehow it's President Trump that didn't want to come to Virginia State University is, again, how people in my world create the story rather than just report it. Reporting it is hard enough. But I don't know, we want to be creative about it because if we can spend enough time being creative on ways we can spin a story, then we don't have to go out and cover another one. Especially if it's a big, meaty, salacious story like the member of the historically black universities and colleges being snubbed by the Trump campaign and some of the narrations of it. But it was actually the Biden campaign that chose these two dates. So can we at least put our ire where the ire should be? Now, there are plenty. I've been to Virginia State University to see shows, and to be fair, to Petersburg, Jeff Dunham, the comedian, the puppeteer, comedian, ventriloquist, he tied up the town 4 hours. So, and I said this when they said that, Virginia State University might be one of the debate sites. And you may say, Joe, I want to hear more meat and potatoes about this. What's Trump going to do? Believe me, there's a lot of people who are gnashing teeth because they don't think President Trump did a very good job in his one debate with Joe Biden. So we'll see. And again, it's the issue is performance and how do you do it? And also the issue of debates. And we had this manifest here in the Commonwealth of Virginia as the 5th District was trying to get some debates between the candidates for the GOP nomination and are struggling to get those nailed down. Both campaigns saying, well, he said, and it's becoming a radio stunt. My buddy Jeff Katz is smartly saying, I'll host them. I did too, but we didn't come up with dates. So Jeff Katz throws out a bunch of dates, and of course the secret to that is then you can deny any of those dates and say, well, we tried. But the radio stunt is the radio stunt there. Publicity and the media-driven polls and debates are all for that. And don't kid yourself. These news agencies, CNN and NBC, and these folks who host these debates, they do it for the gravitas of look at us. We are the center of it all. But does it help anymore? Do these and I truly, even bless President Trump, he changed the paradigm. He broke the rules. He broke that fifth wall, not the fourth wall between you and me. That the television cameras try to pretend are there, and I love the Deadpool movies for it. But the fifth wall, which is where you're not supposed to talk directly to your opponent, sinus issue, and all of a sudden my New Yorker is coming out, talk. So I sound like Linda from the Hannity show, talk. You're not supposed to talk to your opponents. But you're not supposed to address your opponents. I mean, Lincoln and Douglas would pull their hair out at such a proviso, but no, you're not supposed to speak directly to your opponents. Last time I hosted a forum, I threatened the candidates. And I called it a forum specifically because it was going to be, dueling speechifications based on the questions I asked, but no interactions in between the candidates. So the hard thing for the forum director is to make sure that the issues like, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House and everything get addressed if the candidates aren't allowed to address each other. I like this idea, and this has been one, I've only been able to put it into practice one time. It was in the Virginia Senate race, Dwayne Adams, John McGuire, and we were at an event, and I said, okay, here's the last round. And the last round is each one of you will be given the opportunity to pick one of your opponents and ask them one question that they have to answer. And it became interesting, and a lot of the people said, I liked that, because you learn things from first the thought process. Okay, who does this candidate choose as the person they're going to ask a question of, and what is the question that they ask? Because that sometimes is illuminative as the answer that's given. What do they think is important? Because I'd love to see Donald Trump and Joe Biden go mano a mano asking each other questions, because you learn as much from the questions as you do, and it's extemporaneous. Even with preparation, you've got to deliver on stage. And so I think, as Nancy Pelosi said, I wouldn't suggest you debate Donald Trump, but we'll get into that. It's also Final Exercise Weekend here in Charlottesville. Final Exercises, for those uninitiated, is what the University of Virginia refers to their graduations as. The UVA grads will be on the lawn, as you can see there, to receive the sheepskins from the university. So you say, well, Joe, but what about the protests? Well, we'll get into that, because most of, if you didn't see it, the protesters that were arrested on the UVA grounds protesting Israel and the Jewish community, fine. The pro-Hamas protesters, if you insist, the pro-Hamas protesters, the anti-Israel protesters, most of them yesterday were let off the hook without so much as a slap on the wrist by Commonwealth's attorney Jim Hingley in Albemarle County, one of those guys that George Soros spent a lot of money to get elected. Oh, more coming from the media research. Earlier this week, we had Dan Schneider on the program. And again, go to the archives. Each episode of this program is up there, both on YouTube and Rumble, for your perusal. What was the day we had? Hang on a second. I've got to my copious notes here. The day we had Dan Schneider on, was it Monday? I think it was Monday we had Dan Schneider on. So go back to Monday's episode, because we had Dan Schneider from Newsbusters and Censorship Watch and the Media Research Center. And ironically, now we've found $81 million that the Open Society people have spent in 434-882-4217. Make sure you join us on Saturday, May 25th, as we kick off the Memorial Day weekend. Joe Thomas in the morning at Vets for Vets at Gypsy Hill Park in Stanton, raising money for the VFW. If you want to enter your hot rod in the efforts, it's not just Corvettes. They're welcoming everybody there. Mopar, Ford, you name it. You got a rice-burning tuner, you get it in there as well. And, hey, that's by biofuel now. I know when I grew up that was derogatory, but as you know, you've got a tuner, you have a hot hatchback you want to show off as a $10 admission fee. And it all goes to the VFW. It starts at 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 25th, as we kick into Memorial Day weekend. Vets for Vets at Gypsy Hill Park with Joe Thomas in the morning.
This is the Racing Wire Minute with Brian Belansky.
Jimmy Johnson heads to the broadcast booth. That story next.
Learn more at She Can STEM.
Jimmy Johnson's post-full-time NASCAR career has had a lot of layers. The next layer, broadcaster. Johnson is joining NBC Sports. He'll be part of the pre-race coverage for the Indy 500, essentially taking over Dale Jr.'s role. Then he'll be an analyst for the Coke 0400, the Fall Talladega race, and one more playoffs race. Johnson will complete a unique double. He says, even though I've never been able to do the double as a driver, May 26th is going to be a very busy day. After the broadcast, I'll fly to Charlotte Motor Speedway and drive in the Coca-Cola 600. Johnson is a 7-time Cup Series champion and the 2022 Indy 500 Rookie of the Year.
Your Thursday forecast calling for an isolated shower late day, otherwise partly sunny, warmer afternoon, highs around 80. Thursday night, patchy fog before daylight, otherwise partly cloudy, lows around 60. On Friday, a chance of showers and storms in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny, highs once again near 80. By Friday night, chance of showers and storms, lows around 62. By Saturday, showers and storms likely, highs around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for letting us join in with you here on YouTube and Rumble and someday soon over the airs, just like Nikola Tesla told us it could be, and tingling your amplitude and frequency modulation yet again. Call-ins live 434-882-4217. No real live calls. That's the decider. We got a bunch of emails because there's an expression. It's regarding one of those clubs that don't have windows, red lights over them, live insert modifier girls. It's live free calls is what we kind of decided on. And so you could call in at 434-882-4217, or you can email jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. Also, and use the upside of using Rumble and YouTube, you can post a comment right on the stream here, right on the YouTube channel or on the Rumble channel, and we are watching the YouTube feed, but we get an email if you say something to us via Rumble. So let's go to the University of Virginia for a moment. No, I mean you obviously it cost us a lot of money to go there, but it is Final Exercises Weekend. You say, but Joe, what about all the riots? What about all the protests? What about all the people that will cause disruption that have canceled final exercise, quote, graduation events across the country already? We've seen countless universities, major universities, bigger universities than the University of Virginia. Well, that'll hurt somebody's feelings, but. So there have been all these instances where people have used their pro-Hamas protests to disrupt these university graduation programs, and some of them have just been outright canceled, and you'll get your sheepskin in the mail. So here is the UVA policy on official events. It is actually posted on the Final Exercises website. And a couple of points lead to, again, why these people should be arrested for doing things. They say specifically here at the top, attendance at these official ceremonies and events is by invitation only unless otherwise noted. And again, isn't that getting an invitation anyway? Those in attendance without having been invited or otherwise having been authorized to attend may be asked to leave if their presence creates disruption, impedes movement of invited guests from place to place, or otherwise creates unsafe conditions for participants and or invited visitors. Then it goes on later on. Protests, demonstrations, and other expressive activities may take place during the official university ceremonies and events within the following areas at the university grounds: in the area bounded by the Alderman Library, Monroe Hall, Peabody Hall, Special Collections Library, basically out of the way where nobody is, and none of those places are in this picture here. So they're way down if you're looking at your screen, stage left there. So that's been their viewpoint on the final exercises and what they're going to do and those rules are in place and they're clearly placed. So when people violate those rules, then they're supposed to be able to then be arrested. And they get arrested by the university police or the Albemarle County Police. And once arrested, then they face charges, you would think. However, that's not been the case. So as we saw yesterday, Albemarle County's Commonwealth's attorney, and Albemarle County actually has jurisdiction over these the university grounds. So when somebody's arrested, they get taken to the Albemarle County lockup, and it's the Albemarle County Commonwealth's attorney that handles these affairs. This is the report, and it's our buddy Jeff Fogel, who's actually a really good guy. I enjoy talking with Jeff. We don't agree on a ton of things because I think sometimes he likes to play it both ways. He's all about free speech unless it's somebody like you or me that might believe in smaller government and more personal responsibilities. But here's our friends at CBS 19 caught up with the defense attorney regarding the fact that all these protesters got let off. We're not getting the audio again of this. Where is the audio of this? How come the audio isn't
Charges
coming
against
here?
her today.
Let's see if that'll help. Yeah, there. No, still not coming in. All right, we're not getting Jeff's audio on this, so that's going to impede the storytelling here. But basically, he's highlighting the fact that and the point I wanted to jump on that Jeff had said there. Is that the folks who were protesting were in such a large crowd that it would be very hard for this Commonwealth's attorney to place individual charges because, according to Virginia law, the individual police officer has to then face you and say, yes, I arrested this guy for this thing. And apparently the Commonwealth's attorney felt like that would be difficult in a courtroom when you have a large mob. And I say, well, here's an instance where, we have the Virginia Senate setting up a safety committee. Is there not an efficacy for some Commonwealth law that would address this? So, the law says your arresting officer must then, swear in court that they arrested you, and here's why. It's all constitutional. You're supposed to be able to face your accusers, and I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is when that gets weaponized to then say, well, you can't prove it was me. When you have video, you saw some of the video there, you didn't hear the audio from it, but the folks who were rioting and protesting getting a hall pass based on the fact that you can't, the police officers were arresting dozens of people at the time. So I see this as just more reason to have more riots. Because if holding this mass where you'll have 2 times or 3 times as many protesters as you'll have police officers, and then you'll force them to then have to say, I arrested this person for this reason at this time, and do you swear, officer, that? And so the point Jeff Fogel was making in the CBS 19 piece is that because it would be difficult, given the cacophony, given the chaos that this riot caused, to have individual police officers face his clients in court and say, I arrested you for this reason. That's just going to bring more riots. It's just demanding that we have more riots, because if you have the riots taking place, and you know that even if you get arrested for your behavior, you're just going to be let off with a slap on the wrist, or even just being told, all right, don't cause any problems till April 15th. That's the case right here. You say you think you have the audio issue fixed? All right. Well, they say they think they have the audio issue fixed. Let's see if they are right, or is it another conspiracy theory?
41-year-old Kristen Finn for felony assault on a police officer. The Albemarle County Commonwealth's attorney dropping those charges against her today. They also dropped 5 misdemeanor trespassing charges.
It's likely that they're unable to get an officer to say, I remember who I arrested and why.
The majority of arrestees from that May 4th encampment breakup entered into a deferred prosecution.
And what they're offering to people today is no different than what they offer everybody else.
If they stay in good behavior until August 15th, their cases will be dismissed. Commonwealth's attorney Jim Hingley says his office's policy is first-time trespassing offenders will never face jail time, and they often enter into agreements like this one.
I don't think he went beyond what he normally does, and I think he felt constrained not to treat this any differently, because then you would suggest, well, it's the content of the speech that's dictating a different approach.
And 4 people have decided to wait to see what the Commonwealth brings in discovery before they make a decision.
Because they want to establish that they were not culpable of doing anything. And they don't want the university to be able to hide all the evidence which you would otherwise get if you went to trial.
So that's the statements. There are a couple of points that I think jump out at me, and they probably jump out at you as well at 434-882-4217 is number one, if that's the case, how are all these people from January 6th still being held until they confess or sign a confession and then get sent away for several, half dozen years? Because the federal law is not the same as the Virginia law. They're allowed to, in this case, I looked, be charged just in general as a participant in this event. But here becomes the rub. Several of them, are charged in Virginia. But beyond that, doesn't this foment, as I said, if the rule says the individual police officer must swear that they arrested this individual at this individual time for this individual act, or they will be let go on cause. And you have the Commonwealth's attorney saying first-time trespassers generally aren't charged with anything. What do you think that encourages people to do? I mean, just plan out your trespassing and then go ahead and do it. And if you're a first timer, well, just promise you're not going to do it again, regardless of, what you may have done while you're in that criminal trespass.
Thursday patchy forecast, calling for an isolated shower late day, otherwise partly sunny, warmer afternoon, highs around 80. Thursday night, patchy fog before daylight, otherwise partly cloudy, lows around 60. On Friday, a chance of showers and storms in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny, highs once again near 80. By Friday night, chance of showers and storms, lows around 62. By Saturday, showers and storms likely, highs around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in. And 434-882-4217. That's the phone number. And, of course, the emails come into jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. So we'll leave that, the final exercises, but also this very troubling abuse of discretion is more of what I want to spend time on, because while University of Virginia are approaching their final exercises, and of course everyone's saying, what if there are more protests? Because there are going to be more anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protests. There are going to be. The UVA can't let this one slide. The Washington, D.C. press corps is standing by. Washington, D.C. press corps, they need some coverage. There are local news anchors who need to get on national TV. Come on now, folks. Do your part. But more troubling is this attitude towards trespass. And this has bothered me for some time in the Commonwealth of Virginia, because if we believe, and you tell me, maybe you think the Commonwealth is right to, trespassing is really just, it's not that big a deal. Our friend Steve Harvey at First Free Coffee has had dozens, and I'm just going to be conservative, I don't know if it's reached hundreds yet, of his yard signs stolen. Now, that's a common political thing for the gamesmanship of two political parties. Spray, your maiden name on your campaign yard sign so that everyone knows that you're, Antonin Scalia's daughter or something like that. That's people shrug it off. I find it to be offensive because it's defacing other people's property, and it's showing a particular disregard for other people's property. But the law enforcement, the judicial system, and again, this is where we allow this idea that we have this malleable justice system where justice can be blind sometimes. If justice needs to be blind, maybe it can be. Maybe she peeks out from under the blindfold every now and then. Maybe. Because we, the people, want to feel like we can decide, well, he's a good guy. He's a good fella. He shouldn't be facing any kind of criminal charges. Then why are we charging Bob Menendez, who had heretofore done nothing wrong, while, according to the charges, been doing a whole lot of things wrong? His opening statement, I thought, was interesting. His barrister saying that he's broken no law. Huh. You spend enough time around lawyers, you know that picking specific words. He didn't say he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't say, but Your Honor, I'm holding here the canons of New Jersey law. And he's broken no New Jersey law. Of course, this is New Jersey, where the Sopranos, etc. But tongue out of cheek for a moment, this idea that justice can be whatever we need it to be at the moment is perhaps the cornerstone of all of this issue, that with this itchy, because we don't want justice, we want retribution. There's a wonderful clip that once we're back on the radio, you'll get to hear, but it's the TV stuff. There's a lot I'm doing here anyway, so just bear with me, but I'll depict it for you. If you're a longtime listener of the radio program, you'll remember the clip from Frasier where his younger brother Niles says, "I'm not leaving till I get justice." Well, more like preferential treatment, but I'm not leaving until I get it. That's America today. The courts are no longer a place where justice is served, where your rights are protected. It's where you go to get something. I want to get retribution on somebody. There are no longer courtrooms, and believe me, I don't think we have enough courtrooms as it is for the number of people in the United States to see them as a place where your rights are protected. We see them as places you're dragged to be punished. And I'm not even speaking of the off-book, non-Section 3 courtrooms that exist in the federal bureaucracy. Oh, the courtrooms of these bureaucracies, the IRS, the DOJ, the FCC, the FTC, you name it, there are courtrooms of all kinds. And they just issue edicts and then go about persecuting them, saying, well, you violated FTC law here, and but it's a constitutional right. Not according to the Federal Trade Commission, you know. So they create this idea that the courtrooms are like some sort of coliseum, some place to go to watch our gladiatorial games, and some SOB that we don't like. Then send in those Christians. Send in those Christians so we can see them get punished. You know, and that's what our judicial system has become. And the media that covers them gleefully will go in there and say, well, justice wasn't served. And guys like Jeff Fogel, who I like a lot, and he'll go out there to try to defend poor black kids sometimes and give them a voice in court, saying, well, why did you but he's famous for things like stop and frisk. He was convinced that the Charlottesville Police Department was engaging in a racist, racially divisive, racially targeting stop and frisk campaign, when it turned out that the stop and frisk campaign that people were sensing was going on was actually driven in a report by 911 calls. Somebody calls 911, the police have to go and investigate it. So then Jeff said, well, I want to see who's making these calls. And that's when you start to get into, is that a thing we should be suborning? The idea that somebody can make a 911 call and then get doxxed by the authorities so that everyone knows, oh, you called the cops on somebody. Gee, I've lived in several cities where that wouldn't go over real well, kind of late at night. You'd be calling 911 again. And back to this attitude on trespass. So the first crime somebody would commit if they showed up at your house wanting to get retribution on you is trespass. It's your private property, and they're not allowed on it. But we have this attitude that that's not even really a law anymore. And it's subject to this attitude of private property ownership anyway. Too many of our elected officials, too many of our judicial system appointees believe that owning private property is racist, misogynist, elitist. You pick the ist that you want it to be. So they have this attitude towards private property ownership that, well, we're pandering to this growing population of impoverished people living below the poverty level, 4 times as many as when the Great Society began. So in the pandering to the populism that their bosses or their friends could use to get reelected, we treat private property as something bad. as something that in and of itself, you want to be protected on your private property? What kind of racist are you? And you see it in this story where Fogel says that generally speaking, these folks, the idea of trespass is discounted as it's just kids being kids. Of course, and unless one of those kids winds up getting injured while partaking in that trespassing, and then, of course, they'll sue your ass.
GEP entered into a deferred prosecution.
And what they're offering to people today is no different than what they offer everybody else.
If they stay in good behavior until August 15th, their cases will be dismissed. Commonwealth's Attorney Jim Hingley says his office's policy is first-time trespassing offenders will never face jail time, and they often enter into agreements like this one.
Yeah, so that's quite a message to send to would-be trespassers. Is trespassers? Was it Winnie the Pooh had a sign outside of his home in the 100-acre wood? Trespassers will, and he claimed that was some long-lost uncle whose name was Trespassers will. Of course, I believe it was one of those signs that says trespassers will be shot, survivors will be shot again. Because your private property needs to be your private property. Otherwise, we have no society. I know it sounds like, oh, Joe, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. But as we go into Final Exercises Weekend, certainly the attitude of the Albemarle County Commonwealth's Attorney, sponsored by the Open Society George Soros campaign contributions, towards trespassing and violating the law. And I've talked to so many members of the law enforcement community that are this is just another instance of why they quit, why they retire, why they go work private security. They go find something else to do because the justice system tells them to go out, stop crime, but only the crimes we tell you to stop. And when they do stop crime, or they do stop people from violating the laws as they have been legislated, instead of saying, well, you violated the laws as they were legislated, as they have in the January 6th cases, he says yet again, and not just out of the salacious idea of, but the phrase, I'm not leaving until I get justice, or more like preferential treatment, but I'm not leaving until I get it. That's America today. Our judicial system is where we get retribution. It's payback time, baby. I got the Commonwealth's attorney here and a couple of cops, and we're coming after you. We don't like your business. We don't like your programming. We don't like how you behave. We don't like your house. We don't. And understand this, as a grand abstract. You talk about the Davos World Economic Forum campaign. It's 2030, which is only a couple of years from now, by the way. You will own nothing. You will have no privacy. And you will have never been happier. That's their belief. Even the zealots that believe that. But most of them, they just want to make sure you don't have any property. And you only spend your money on the things they want you to spend it on. And speaking of George Soros, when we come back, our friends at the Media Research Center, yet more money from the Open Society folks to make it a closed society. Funny enough.
Thursday forecast calling for an isolated shower late day, otherwise partly sunny, warmer afternoon, highs around 80. Thursday night, patchy fog before daylight, otherwise partly cloudy, lows around 60. On Friday, a chance of showers and storms in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny, highs once again near 80. By Friday night, chance of showers and storms, lows around 62. By Saturday, showers and storms likely, highs around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in, and don't forget you can join us on May 25th. Joe Thomas in the morning, live from the Vets for Vets fundraiser for the Virginia for the veterans of foreign wars. They are $10 admission if you want to show off your ride. You got one of those lower trucks. Please don't bring the ones that are doing the Carolina squat. That is against Virginia law, by the way. But if you've got a hot rod, a hot hatch, whatever it may be. I know the name of the event is Vets for Vets, but the organizers who will be on Friday's show tomorrow want me to make sure you know that all makes and models are welcome at Gypsy Hill Park on May 25th, starting at 10 a.m. Join me live for their On the Radio. But anyway, so I wanted to bring up this George Soros story. The Open Society folks, the Media Research Center, have found yet another $80 million that the Open Society folks have funneled into censorship in social media. Now, this is the Open Society. $80 million to Silence Americans Media Research Center report. Media Group financed is looking to incorporate, quoting from their press release, looking to incorporate global pressure to push big technology platforms to juice their censorship operations before the 2024 presidential election. Free Press, which is not affiliated with the journalist Barry Weiss's The Free Press, bills itself as an organization that, quote, closely watches as decisions shaping the media landscape are made and sounds the alarm when people's rights to connect and communicate are in danger. The Soros Open Society Foundation gave $80 million to groups affiliated, calling for censorship ahead of the election. One of the wealthiest men in the world, according to the Media Research Center, again, it's Dan Schneider kind of foretold this on Monday's program. One of the wealthiest men in the world is using his vast wealth and power to silence regular Americans ahead of the 2024 election. And that includes things like taking you down off of Instagram or YouTube. If you're out there saying that, oh, did you see that there were power outages on the boat all through the weekend before it crashed into the Key Bridge? Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. We're going to take you off until, of course, you find out this morning that the National Transportation Safety Board is investigating the 4 power outages that befell the ship before the Dolly before it rammed into and why they were allowed to set sail. Even so, and 434-882-4217, you wouldn't be the first person to say, hey, we're going to need a new batch of conspiracy theories because we're running out of them. Because you wait long enough, you hang in there, and all of a sudden something that was a conspiracy theory that could get you under these guidelines kicked off of places like YouTube and Rumble, and not so much Rumble, but YouTube or Google in general. They've even asked Google to start shutting down people's Gmail accounts Funny, they don't go after the Gmail accounts of the government officials who are colluding with activist groups over Gmail in violation of federal law. They won't go after that, but they're asking them to shut down email accounts where people share dangerous misinformation. And, of course, this misinformation is very similar to the information that eventually comes out proving everything to have been right in the first place. But that's years hence. We won't. And then it's just like, oops, we're sorry. This is what I mean when I say, we're using our justice system to create a retributional society where if I don't like what you're saying, I can punish you. No, of course, I see plenty of things online that I don't like, but I'm vested in the idea of you get a right to say that, man. But the problem is if I go after and say, hey, none of this Green New Deal stuff. What was it? The phrase that. We had a phrase, watermelon, the watermelon policies of the environmental movement, green on the outside, red on the inside. I thought that was a great, it was Craig Rucker from CFAC said that on this program, another one of those archives that you can go and peruse at your leisure. Like Star Trek, we're probably more popular in reruns than we were in first run. But I appreciate you being out there. That's why we started taking your phone calls live at 434-882-4217. But all of these instances where people were punished, and we have this content creator we told you about in yesterday's show, suing the federal government over this law that says they have to force ByteDance to sell their controlling interest of TikTok because ByteDance is owned by the Chinese Communist Party, and they decide what gets on the TikTok feed. But that's indefensible, right? We must defend free speech rights then. When we know the Chinese Communist Party is picking and choosing what things you see in the TikTok feed that you or your kids may indulge in, and if you're a state employee, you shouldn't have it on your phone. Probably going to get called into human resources at some point. But if I go on this program and say, hey, these watermelon policies, red on the inside, green on the outside, don't do anything or actually make something dirty, I could lose the YouTube channel. We're already on strike 2. Strike 3 and we're out. Luckily, we have the Rumble channel, but a lot of you watch on YouTube. I see the numbers. I mean, it's not like we're playing Call of Duty. You want to get some hits. If you want to get your YouTube feed to get popular, I'd be sitting here playing Call of Duty right now. And you'd be watching me play a video game. And you wonder why modern American sports have seen a decline in their viewership. Some people are like, hey, I want to watch this guy play a video game. But we've created these scenarios where you go after a company, and this is also, from this program, we talked to our friends at the Free Enterprise Project. You create a scenario where you can punish a company if they allow people to say things through their platforms that are unpopular or challenge the paradigm, challenge the narrative. If you go on social media and start talking about all the atrocities that Hamas has created, have you seen these stories that have outed Hamas's leadership for laying to sacrifice every single Palestinian in Gaza, if necessary, to save their own skins? You say human shields, boys and girls. But yet Israel is supposed to be the bad guy, so if you go out and point that out, your posts will get deleted. You'll have your content flagged, or you may just lose your ability to use those platforms to say things. And in an app, because we're using private companies or even publicly traded companies to engage in these speech manners, we still haven't figured out a way to handle it. And we keep banging our heads against walls trying to come up with a way to deal with this when it's really quite simple. Come here, closer. Closer. Too creepy? I'll get closer. Not with the hands, all right? No hands, too. Take away these platforms' 230 protections. Let them be sued like a publisher, like Newsweek or Joe Thomas in the Morning. Let them face the same potential litigation for allowing for lies. Because it's easy to say, oh, so-and-so is engaging in false or fake news. Okay, prove it. Tony Fauci just admitted to Rand Paul earlier this year that the 6-foot social distancing stuff was made up off the top of his head. Yet if you challenged that, see our friends up at Gore Meltz in Fredericksburg, if you challenge the idea that people couldn't be closer to each other than 6 feet, except if they're in a grocery store or a Walmart, but certainly not a polling place, certainly not a factory where you might be manufacturing things for our supply chain. Certainly, not those places, but you can go into ABC stores, but not your churches. All that stuff is made up. But if you challenged that, you were deplatformed. You had your Facebook feed suspended. You had your content flagged at very least. In most cases, you just lost your ability to go out and share this information with people. Sure, you could go knocking door to door saying, hey, did you see? And that's fine. But this is the same thing. This is a corporatist version of the Stamp Act, where King George was trying to stop Thomas Paine and other pamphleteers at the time. Today we might call them bloggers, maybe. Sounds like a similarity. Was trying to stop them from going and publishing their papers. So, the paper that you had to use had to come with an embossed stamp from the British government, increasing the cost and also controlling then a knowledge base of who has what paper and for what reason. And they could try, this stamp says Thomas Paine bought this. Oh, okay, so now we know who this pamphleteer is. And it was all about stopping the information flow from getting around. Because in Britain, it was much more authoritarian. This is why Thomas Jefferson's treatise, Thomas Jefferson's legal filing under Magna Carta, that we call the Declaration of Independence, had this opening statement full of charges that they were charging King George with. Far more egregious than anything in the opening statements of the Cohen trial or the Menendez trial even. But there they were laid out there, all these abuses of natural human rights, which is what the government of the American colonies was following. This was a controversial thing, but they would have been arrested, thrown in jail, like faster than you can say January 6th. And that's what now what we've discovered is if we can push all that communication into a business, perhaps this is inapt, and the Legal Eagles can email jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com, or please call and share your thought. But an inapt comparison, suppose the British government in the 18th century went after the paper manufacturers instead of just insisting that everyone pay an extra tax for the stamp on the papers that you would be publishing your blogs on. What if they went after those companies and said, you've manufactured this paper? We're going after you because we have this diversity, equity, and inclusion laws and ESG requirements. Join Joe Thomas in the morning on Saturday, May 25th at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets. It's a car show to benefit local veterans charities, including the VFW. $10 admission fee if you want to show off your car. We'll go to the vets as well, and it begins at 10 a.m. There'll be food and fun and music. And Joe Thomas in the morning, if that means anything to you, at Gypsy Hill Park in Stanton. It is Vets for Vets.
Your Thursday forecast calling for an isolated shower late day, otherwise partly sunny, warmer afternoon, highs around 80. Thursday night, patchy fog before daylight, otherwise partly cloudy, lows around 60. On Friday, a chance of showers and storms in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny, highs once again near 80. By Friday night, chance of showers and storms, lows around 62. By Saturday, showers and storms likely, highs around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thank you for joining in and being part of it here on YouTube or Rumble, and soon back to live broadcast radio as well. Somebody asked me that, would we keep doing this, live video? I think we're going to repurpose, especially the Rumble channel, for videos, sure, but it's not going to just be live from wherever we are, because we're going to try to be in a lot of places, as we always have been. But I think the video compartment of it, I think maybe, bonus coverage of things, little extra things like that. Backstage is such a silly thing, but the Rumble channel will still be going with content, if you will. But it'll just be, some after party stuff and things like that. But you can call in 434-882-4217, or you can email jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. We've already been into, if you're just joining us in progress, UVA's Final Exercises coming up this weekend, and coincidentally at the same time, the folks in Albemarle County have dropped all the charges on all the protesters, and and UVA is taking some great efforts to remind people that certainly your protests, your free speech rights are welcome, but you just can do it all the way over here, behind a couple of buildings and down the street. But the press will cover it anyway. But they've got the plan in place that they're not expecting UVA's graduation ceremonies, final exercises, to fall prey to the same problems that other universities have had regarding having to shut down or just cancel final exercises altogether. So we're going to move off that. And we talked about the Open Society. We talked about the 4 blackouts on the Dolly before she was allowed to leave Baltimore Harbor anyway, and the investigation that ensues into that incident. No, we haven't gotten into the crime report yet. Charlottesville police issuing their crime report, but of course the story that's got everyone's attention is the great debate. Trump v. Biden. President Trump has agreed to take part in this June 27th debate amongst the candidates. And of course, there's a reminder there, right there on the screen, about debates, because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is out there saying that these presidential candidates have violated the Constitution and are depriving people of being able to hear from all the candidates. And in some cases, Kennedy's polling 14%. So is he make a reasonable case? Donald Trump issued a video where he called Kennedy a plant for the Democratic Party. And it was just set up, and he's set in there by the Democratic Party to detract votes away from Donald Trump. And certainly you see that here in Virginia, where the polls, the most recent ones that came out, that show Donald Trump just a point or two behind Joe Biden in Virginia, where, to be fair, Donald Trump actually only fell to Hillary Clinton by about 5 points in 2016, and that he is pretty close to Joe Biden. Even the Center for Politics had to say, yeah, it's going to be more like that than the route that it was on in 2020, where he was way behind in Virginia. He didn't really come close at all there. But right now, polling data says that Donald Trump's only about a point or two behind Joe Biden in the Commonwealth of Virginia, until you put Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the docket. And then it appears that most of the 14 points that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. gets come from Donald Trump, come from his supporters in Virginia alone. So the text comes in on the YouTube channel users feed. Greg in the Richmond area says, "I'm surprised it's still called Gypsy Hill." See, this is why you guys are, catch stuff like that. This is Central European Hill Park, I think is what we're supposed to call it, right? Because the G word is supposedly offensive, but you may now start something. One of your representatives in the General Assembly might start a campaign to have Gypsy Hill Park renamed, because that offends us. Oh, and I can hear the narrative, Greg, not to go on a tangent, of all the other supposed derogatory terms, racial derogatory terms that we would never name a park. Beep. So thank you for bringing that up, Greg. So the great debate and the presidential debate that's going to be coming up is, I think, very important to a lot of people in the press. And here's why I say that. Because I think we, the people, don't get as much out of these debates as we could, disregarding the idea that the office of the president holds disproportionate power and in many cases unconstitutional power. But while it does, it's important. But are we learning anything by watching two fellas or three fellas get up on stage and just read from their campaign websites? Donald Trump has been sanctioned how many times for interacting directly with his opponent? That's what we want. We want to see two people seeking the same office debate with one another. But we don't. We get dueling statements of intent. We get dueling statements from campaign websites. we never get a real engagement in this scenario. We don't get to hear from one another what their intents are. We just get the same stuff we could get from their website. Let them go at each other. Let them ask each other questions. I find that it's more illuminative to do that than to just allow these guys to sit there on the stage saying whatever they want, reading from their side, and you get, you're allowed to respond if they say something about you specifically. And that brings us to the 5th District, where, unlike President Trump, we can't seem to get both candidates in a room. And the McGuire campaign says it's a setup. The Amherst GOP only wanted to hold this debate to help Bob Good look good. And that goes back to the intent of the organizer. What is the intent of the organizer? Media news organizations, the intent is to make themselves look good. But when you find, and go back to our friends at Newsbusters and the Media Research Center, how many of these people would vote for Joe Biden anyway, or Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? And we'll play Donald Trump's quip about it. I thought I had it standing by here. This is a little bit of the reaction from our locals regarding this campaign. Let me, since I said let's get phone calls. We have one coming in here, so let's hear from you before I play the clips of Mark Warner and some of these other folks commenting on the debate. Am I right or wrong about these debates not really serving a purpose anymore? Who's this?
Hey, Joe, it's Clark. So my question on the debates is, who needs to see a debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden to figure out who they want to vote for?
Interesting. So you think at this point the die has been cast, so there's no real reason to have these two guys up there. The undecided voters aren't all that numerous?
Well, let's see. I got a candidate that wants to make America great again and has a track record of trying to do that. And actions speak louder than words. I got another candidate that has diminished my country at every turn. I don't have a whole lot of deciding. So if they have this debate, are they going to put a gag order on Trump?
That's an interesting thought. Since he's got a gag order pretty much every other place he goes, what will he and that in a lot of parts, Clark, bring up the issue of these debates anyway, because you're told you're not allowed to interact with your opponent. You're not allowed to say anything specifically to them. You have the moderators, who often are the ones who are the ones who are trying to look the best in the scenario. So they are sitting there arguing with the participants themselves in some cases. And we learned that Donna Brazile gave all of her questions to Hillary Clinton back in 2016. It's a mess. It's not what it should be.
The best one, Joe, had to be when Barack Obama told Candy Crowley, get the document. And she reached into her bag
and got the document.
Yes. No, pre-coordination collusion there, huh?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not like he knew it was coming or anything like that.
Yeah.
So you don't think the debates are necessary? Should Robert F. Kennedy Jr. be allowed into the debate?
That would be interesting. I'd like to see that.
Now, Donald Trump put out a video yesterday on Truth Social calling Kennedy a Biden campaign plant, specifically to leech votes away from him. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay.
No. I think, and the interesting thing about his campaign is it gives the committed leftist such a conundrum, because they have to agree with him on some things, but their overlords tell them he's bad, so they kick him.
Right.
And that's just very interesting there. I do have one idea for these debates. You know how, like the muscular dystrophy telethon, they've got that running total?
Yeah,
how
sure.
much they've collected so far?
Mm-hmm.
They could put the gag order on Trump and then maybe have Merchan over in the corner flicking a thing over how much in fines Donald Trump has racked up so far in the debate.
That's good stuff. I was going to say how the poll numbers have changed each time, and
they could have that too.
Sure, absolutely. You could have a running poll going on there. I appreciate it, Dr. Clark. You have a good morning, sir.
Take care, Joe.
Join Joe Thomas in the morning to kick off the Memorial Day weekend at Gypsy Hill Park in Stanton as we broadcast live. Yes, he said broadcast live from Vets for Vets. It kicks off at 10 a.m. to benefit vets charities in the area. And it's not just Corvettes, although I imagine there will be plenty of those. If you, whatever you drive, if you want to show it off, there'll be placards for the first 200 cars entered, dashboard plaques, and there'll be cash prizes for categories as well. You sign up or on the day of or get with them in advance. But join us at Gypsy Hill Park Saturday starting at 10 a.m. for Vets for Vets with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Your Thursday forecast calling for an isolated shower late day, otherwise partly sunny, warmer afternoon, highs around 80. Thursday night, patchy fog before daylight, otherwise partly cloudy, lows around 60. On Friday, a chance of showers and storms in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny, highs once again near 80. By Friday night, chance of showers and storms, lows around 62. By Saturday, showers and storms likely, highs around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining us. It's time to open Mac McDonald's Sports Reporter's Notebook, program director at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. How you doing this morning, Mac? Hang on a second here. Hang on a second, Mac. We've discovered a situation with the audio. Go ahead. Can we hear Mac now?
Is it all right? Is that a little better?
Still working on it here, but we had to switch out. There was apparently different places where the audio's been coming in for. We may hear you now. Are you there? Well, I know you're here, but I'm just I know the setting that you got to click that switch over there, yeah. Oh yeah, well that's it, and it's a. No, we can't hear you yet anyway. So hang on 1 second. We've got to change an input source here to get you in here. Give me 2 seconds on that. Mac McDonald, of course, our friends, and he goes, well, it was we were playing back the audio of a news story, and in order to play back the news story, we needed to have a certain source open, and so now we should be. Let's make sure of it there. I think we are back in line with where Mac's audio should be coming in for. Say something for me, Mac. Let's make sure that we're getting. Oh, that's okay. There it is. And there he is. I think we got you back, Mac. How you doing, sir? That's good. We still haven't got Mac here yet. Let's do that. And now live on the fly here.
Live on the fly. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good now, sir.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing fine. Happy Thursday. I heard you talking about the vets for vets.
Yeah.
It's funny because in Florida they have a promotion here where I live called Trucks That Suck. So it's really kind of a nice little little weekend.
Very nice.
All right, it's another step. I know. Okay, I practiced that joke forever. Another step for the Celtics. The Mavericks pick up a road win to take a 3-2 lead. Boston's business-like approach was on display. They won at home, beating shorthand Cleveland 113-98 last night. The Cavs were still minus Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, and Chris LeVert, and led by 6 in the second. Yeah, the Cavs led by 6, but a Celtic 18-6 run ended any thoughts of the upset. Boston won the series in 5. Jason Tatum at 25-10 boards. By the way, the ageless Al Horford had 22 and 15 boards, but former Virginia Cavalier Sam Hauser, 5 points, 10 minutes, averaging 22 minutes on the year. Come on, let's give Sam a little love. All right, the Mavericks picked off OKC, winning on the road 104-92. Big win. Luka Doncic had 31, 10 boards, 11 assists, ho-hum. And Dallas, a 3-2 lead now in the West semifinals. The Mavs opened up a 15-point lead in the second. Luka admits now, not the most dynamic personality, but it's all about understanding math and mentality.
Just our mentality. We know the last game we played against them at home, we let it go. It was our mistakes, and they hit shots. So our mentality just in the playoffs, it's first to 4. So you got to win 4 before they do. So you got to go game by game.
That's the math. It's that simple. Mavericks blew a 14-point lead at home in Game 4, and the series will shift back to Big D for Game 6. All right. Give it up to the number 12 Virginia men's golf team. They turned in the best NCAA regional finish in program history. Now, they didn't win because Auburn went crazy yesterday, shooting 20 under. The Cavs shot 7 under 281 in the final round of the NCAA Baton Rouge, so they finished second. So that means they're going to Carlsbad end of the month for the NCAA tournament. 19th appearance in the NCAA. Bowen Sargent can coach. I'm just telling you. So professional golf second major starts today in Louisville. The 106th PGA Championship, and the 4th time Valhalla has been the host, with holes like Thor's Hammer and No Mercy, the 38-year-old, it's a Jack Nicklaus design. So you got to have, each hole has got to have a name, right? While the scribes, I think when I was growing up, I watched a movie called Thor's Hammer. While the scribes were told yesterday, Rory would not talk about his recent announcement of his pending divorce. He noted it's a course he likes, giving players a little freedom.
I think it's all about confidence and momentum, and I have a lot of confidence and quite a bit of momentum coming into this week. So, as you said, like trying to play with freedom, I think this is a golf course that allows you to play with freedom. It's a big golf course. The corridors are wide, not too dissimilar to last week at Quail Hollow, so you can open your shoulders up a little bit off the tee and then try to take your chances from there.
Yeah, that's golf speak for you can just let it rip when you open your shoulders.
Rip
okay,
it and rip it is what I was.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, they're underway. All the big timers are teeing off this morning, actually. So White Sox shut out the Nats 2-0. The Nats have not scored in the last two games, by the way. It's 19 innings
like
if
they're
you're keeping
so
score.
anemic. And it's another one of these kids. He's like 23 years old, so the White Sox are dead last, so they're just calling up everybody. And then it was Eric Fetty, who was a national for so long.
Let it go. It's like, no, if you're sitting in church Sunday, you look over 4 pews up and you go, I think that guy could play third for us. Do you think? Travel day today. Phillies on tap for the weekend. Baltimore gets a walk-off from Adley Rutschman. How good has he been? 4 home runs last 3 games. No big deal. 2-run homer in the bottom of the 9th. Once again, the O's avoid a sweep. That's 105 if you're keeping 105 series without being swept. The Orioles have the Mariners in for the weekend, and that's regular season as well. And probably the worst headline I've seen in quite some time. I am not an Adam Sandler fan at all. I think he's the most unfunny, overpaid performer ever. I don't think Adam Sandler is funny. Netflix officially greenlights a Happy Gilmore sequel.
Oh,
now,
well,
if
at
you
some
thought
point,
Caddyshack 2 was bad, I mean, this. So please, I mean.
It was one of his funny movies there, and maybe Drew Carey can come in and play the Bob Barker role.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
At some point he has to go back and remind people. Now be careful. You work at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. Don't let your boss hear your opinion on that, because Dan loves him some.
I know Dan
Adam
will be
Sandler.
in it somewhere. No, he'll be in it. He'll be in it somewhere. Adam, Sandler he's been like in 18 movies or something like that. Yeah, we've talked to Coach Patrick about that a couple of times. So, yeah. But anyway, Adam's saying, so if you want to have the most, if one of your kids gets in trouble, you put them in a room, put them in timeout, make them watch Unfrosted, Caddyshack 2, and had the Happy Gilmore sequel. So
it's like, no, please, Dad, I'll never do it again.
No, I'll never not mow the yard. I apologize. I'll be on time. I'll get in. So anyway, but yeah, this is gonna be a fun. Valhalla is it's a terrific golf course. So I've got my media TV on. It's going to be a fun weekend because this is going to be it's always Tigers. Is he going to make the cut? That's story number one. How's my? But a couple of great sidelines here and angles. So it'll be a fun tournament to watch this weekend for sure.
Well, we will be watching with a name like Valhalla. I would expect some of the holes to be named Thor's Hammer and things like that. I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah, because I mean the Ryder Cup has been there. They've had 4 PGAs there. A junior, a couple of junior events, girls USGA. This is just when Nicholas designed it, and it's privately owned. When Nicholas designed it, he said, no, we want a championship course that is for championship golf. And that's rare. So anyway, Valhalla is pretty special. So it's one of those overlooked, venues, but the PGA, because the PGA for those, it used to be played in August, and now they move it up. So you got Masters, PGA, US Open, British Open, and you get everything done in July. And that way with the Olympics coming up. By the way, I was reading yesterday, real quick, Joe, and I know you probably had got to go. I was disappointed to hear, because my wife told me, and I hadn't even read it, because my wife being from Belgium, speaks French, follows a little bit what's going on in France, and looking at the Olympics. She loves the Olympics, and she said, "You realize they're not going to play baseball in the Olympics?" I went,
"Yeah,
really? Yeah, karate and baseball are two of the sports that have been kicked to the curb.
Didn't make the cut
for the Olympics."
But I don't remember the ones.
Well, Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred stepped up and said, "Too many teams cannot lose players."
Yeah,
he goes, "It's July. We're in, yeah, that way they can play. They ought to just take at that time instead they only just play every interleague game at that point and play with your minor leaguers."
the NHL just takes a couple of weeks off during the Winter Olympics. But then again, nobody noticed anyway because the NHL regular season is just designed to eliminate 2 or 3 teams like the New Jersey Devils from
and how about the Avalanche last night? 3 goals in the third to stay alive. That's playoff hockey. That's
desperation.
So that was good.
So
I hope you have a good Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm giving you a preview of Foster and Friends because a former Cavalier, now the athletic director at Old Dominion, Wood Seelig, one of the brightest, smartest minds in the history of the world, talking about Old Dominion, the Sun Belt, and NIL, and it's really good. So anyway, Wood is our guest this weekend. So
yeah, interesting to hear his thoughts on, especially at a school like Old Dominion, which isn't one of those big name schools like Alabama or Auburn or.
And he's raised over 100 in 14 years. He's raised over 100 million. They've redone the football stadium, the baseball stadium. I mean, they've redone everything. Their support center. Wood is just, nobody says no to Wood. No one ever, hey, we need 40 million. Okay.
Including Mac and Bud when he says, "Hey, can I come on your show?"
Right.
Good stuff, so, Mac. Look forward to that tomorrow.
All right, man. See you Friday.
Join us on Saturday, May 25th at Gypsy Hill Park in Stanton for Vets for Vets, raising money for vets charities in the Valley, and some great cars, not just Corvettes, though I'm sure there will be plenty of them. If you have a car that you want to display, there will be a dashboard plaque for the first 200 entries into the car show, and there'll be cash prizes, music, and other goodies, all starting at 10 a.m. if you just want to come and take a look at some of these beautiful cars. Vets for Vets, Saturday, May 25th, as we kick off the Memorial Day weekend at Gypsy Hill Park with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Your Thursday forecast, calling for an isolated shower late day, otherwise partly sunny, warmer afternoon, highs around 80. Thursday night, patchy fog before daylight, otherwise partly cloudy, lows around 60. On Friday, a chance of showers and storms in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny, highs once again near 80. By Friday night, chance of showers and storms, lows around 62. By Saturday, showers and storms likely, highs around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning, and 434. Write down the sources so that when we have to play clips back, because we're going to do that again, so we don't go through that whole scenario again. Larry writes into the YouTube feed And again, if you comment on the Rumble feed, I get an email about it too. So you will be represented. Because several people reacting to Mac's movie reviewing here. We'll get into that as well. But first and foremost, like I said, if you send a comment to our Rumble channel, I get emails about that as well as the YouTube feed, which we're seeing live. Larry writes in, I may have attended the last great presidential debate. It was in 1980 before websites existed, Carter/Reagan. While both candidates had their prepared talking points, the two candidates shared visions with the gathered. But again, this was sort of the beginning and where the interaction, the interplay between the candidates, I think, started to fall apart. And on the subject of this debate, so Trump is going to debate with Biden on the 27th, and that's how it's being portrayed. But it's not really, because the rules keep saying, oh, no, you can't interact directly with your opponent. That's what a debate is. So it's just dueling press statements. It's dueling press conferences. It's not a debate if the two participants or four participants or six participants aren't engaging with another. And I brought up the Virginia Senate debate that we held. It was John McGuire, Dwayne Adams, and we were I think we were in Goochland County. And the last question was not a question. It was, you, the candidate, get to pick any of your opponents, and there are four of them, pick one and ask them a direct question. They have to answer it. And there were a lot of people didn't like that, because, you're just trying to play setup. You're playing gotcha. Hey, judge the people, A, by the questions that they ask, and B, by who they choose to ask them, and C, what the answer is. It's a win-win. It's what debating was supposed to be. If you look up the concept of a debate. But these are not debates anymore, and partially it's because of the media people who love to insert ourselves into it. The moderator becomes the thing. And it shouldn't. It should be, here's the amount of time. You get to ask a question. The question can only be this long. And your opponent has to answer it. And go back and forth. Just say, okay, foreign policy. Donald Trump, you're the challenger, so you get to start off with a question. And you can, with the moderator, rebuke statements. See, I would prefer the statements to be at the back end of somebody's question. So if Donald Trump wants to ask Joe Biden a question, he should be able to. And Joe Biden should have to answer it. Say, pick the theme. Say, okay, right now we're going to talk about foreign policy. And let them actually go back and forth. But we don't do that anymore. So I'm weary of the whole debate scenario. Now, the local electeds, plus our friends at the UVA Center for Politics, of course, had to weigh in on all of this. Are you sure all the buttons are pushed? All right, go ahead.
Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice.
In a video and letter released Wednesday, President Joe Biden challenged former President Donald Trump to debate him.
So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Most people want to see the two candidates for the most powerful office on the face of the earth together on the same stage so that they can measure them one against the other.
Larry Sabato with the UVA Center for Politics.
And I'm going to jump in on something Larry said, and Larry's not wrong. It is a powerful office. Larry is not wrong that it is a powerful office. That is part and parcel of the problem, is that this office has become too powerful. But back to the story from our friends at CBS 19.
It says presidential debates are part of the tradition in American politics, but he believes the truth is many voters have already decided their choice.
Occasionally you have a gaffe that is so serious that people reconsider their decision.
I think when the vast majority of Americans who have not focused on the elections really at this point start to realize the kind of really incredibly bitter, grievance-ridden language that President Trump has been using.
Senator Mark Warner thinks debating Trump will help.
He doesn't lay out any vision for the future of the country. It's all about him and his enemies, real and imagined. And I think the more that gets out there, and a debate would be a good format.
And Senator Tim Kaine thinks having a debate is a good idea.
I think American voters are entitled to see the nominees for president debate.
Trump responded to Biden's challenge in a social media post saying that he is, quote, ready and willing to debate his Democratic opponent. 2 debates have been scheduled for June and September. This is earlier than debates hosted by the Commission on Presidential Debates.
People in Virginia and many other places start voting by the end of September. So why not have the debates before people vote?
Both candidates have made proposals, though. Trump's campaign is pushing for more than 2 events. Biden's campaign is suggesting a change they say would make the debates more substantive and less of a spectacle, getting rid of a live audience.
100 million Americans, probably more, will be allowed into the debate via television and online forums. They're going to see it all.
And so the question of a live audience, I think that's just gamesmanship. I don't think that's substantive. The question of whether or not we learn anything from these debates, that's the bigger question. 434-882-4217, like Larry said, he thought the last great debate was Carter-Reagan in 1980, and we haven't had a good one since. Because And here's where there is a case to be made for debating, because it's one thing to go on TV or to have political action committees go on TV and call your opponent a liar or a cheat or a scoundrel or whatever the epitaphs or the epithets that you want to throw at them can be. It's a different thing to stand on the stage and actually answer to that. And too often moderators will let them blow off a question like, hey, this political action committee, well, I have no control over that. Sure you do. Sure you do. We all know that all the campaigns have control or at least input to what the political action committees that are doing it on their behalf. And if you don't have any control of it, don't go after George Soros and the Open Society people for manipulating the media, because it's all the same. It's all the same. And so the question out of that whole story, and Larry Sabato is not wrong when he says it's the most powerful office in the country. That's the problem. That there is the problem, is the executive branch. I'd love to hear Donald Trump tell me how he's going to garrote the executive branch shadow government, because that's where the shadow government is in the executive branch cabinet secretaries. They each have a police department. They each have a court system, extra constitutional. That's where the problem is. Sure, the swamp is the bureaucracy that answers their beck and call, but they're the ones who direct it. They're the ones who go out, like the sheriff of Nottingham or Jefferson, as he talked about. He has established a multitude of new offices, sending forth from these offices soldiers to eat out our substance. I'm sure paraphrasing from the Declaration of Independence. That's the issue. The issue isn't Donald Trump or Joe Biden. It's the power of this presidency. See, Larry, when you were watching the debate in 1980, the presidency wasn't nearly the monarchy that it is today. Reagan had to sit down with Tip O'Neill to get anything done, and they did. So, as Tom Garrett said on Tuesday morning's program, when you look at Glenn Youngkin sitting there with Louise Lucas after, and his point, I think well taken, was the problem isn't the staging of the signing of the Virginia budget. The problem is what Louise then goes and does to keep the base excited. She'll go out and tweet saying, had to go sit next to Youngkin's, or whatever she writes, and more hate-filled rhetoric. If he thinks he's going to get away, and because she has to save face amongst the zealots that she has created. And for the most part, and this goes back to our conversation yesterday. The issues are the same: poverty, human health, not health care, but human health. These things are the same whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, and they dodge them in these debates. Dealing with poverty, tell me what your plan is to deal with poverty. The consumer price index only went up by 0.3 of a percentage point. We'll get into that next, but they'll point to that on one side as they look, the economy is getting better. Is it really? Join Joe Thomas in the morning on May 25th as we kick off the Memorial Day weekend with a live broadcast from Vets for Vets, celebrating cars and the motoring world while we still can at Gypsy Hill Park to benefit veterans who have laid down it all for us. And come out if you have a car you'd like to show off. You can enter it by placing a $10 fee into the bucket for the veterans causes in the VFW. There'll be cash prizes for category winners and things like that, music and food and fun, and a live broadcast by Joe Thomas in the morning if that means anything to you. Come out and visit with us, if you will. Gypsy Hill Park in Stanton starting at 10 a.m. on Saturday, May 25th for Vets for Vets.
Your Thursday forecast calling for an isolated shower late day, otherwise partly sunny, warmer afternoon, highs around 80. Thursday night, patchy fog before daylight, otherwise partly cloudy, lows around 60. On Friday, a chance of showers and storms in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny, highs once again near 80. By Friday night, chance of showers and storms, lows around 62. By Saturday, showers and storms likely, highs around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for letting us do what we do with you each and every day. You can send comments to jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com, or you can make comments as well through the channels on both the YouTube and Rumble feeds. And we'll see them. We're watching the YouTube feed live, but the Rumble feed, which is subsidiary to it, jumps out of it. We'll get an email if you post it there. Greg writes in, I'm hoping Biden has a McConnell moment. What does that say about our elected officials? Trump could step in and simply claim, help, somebody call 911. Well, it's going to be one of those deals where I think it's not going to be as much as you think. Now, a lot of President Trump supporters are very anxious about this. because they recall that he did not perform well. He seemed overprepared in his one chance to debate with Joe Biden in person in 2020. He seemed over-consulted. He seemed too concerned with getting the answer that he was prepared with out there correctly, and it just didn't come off well. And I've talked to many people who are ardent Donald Trump supporters who said, I couldn't, and many of them, none of them voted for Joe Biden, but many of them stayed home. And that's a problem. And understand this is in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where Donald Trump received more votes in 2020 than Glenn Youngkin did in 2021. So it's a turnout issue. It's a turnout deal there. Quick point, and I've been looking for information. We've reached out to Corinne Geller at the Virginia State Police, and we'll see if there's anything there. But at the end of yesterday's show, we had a story about an active shooter that had been gripping the eastbound side of I-64 coming down towards Charlottesville out of Waynesboro, and I have scoured it. I've scoured every, like I said, we've reached out to Corinne to try to get some background on it, and this is the only thing that we could find, and it was in our friends at the News Leader, who's basically just said, yeah, everything's over, all clear here, and everything's, but what was going on with this guy? You know, the report was this guy was shooting at one of the support buildings, and the shooter was just going off at the building in the rest area, and we don't know why. What was going on? Was there somebody in the building at the time? Did he think there was somebody in the building at the time? That may be the case. We don't know. But it gripped the I-64 for at least an hour yesterday morning, and nothing. Crickets. If there was somebody in the building, how are they? Are they okay? The police okay? SWAT came in and cleared the scene, as the News Leader story tells you. Cleared the scene. What does that mean? Has the shooter, as Rush used to say, assumed room temperature? Or is he now in the care of medical professionals who are trying to figure out why he lost his grip on his last good marble? According to the police reports, he was dressed in camouflage, and he was in the rest area shooting at one of the support buildings for the rest area. Was there, did he think somebody was in there? How did that all manifest? Those stories. So we still don't have any detail on that. But I want to move, since debate or not debate, the consumer price index continues to rise. But you read the headlines, inflation eased. Inflation eased? Okay, so now it's 3.3% month over month, and it continues to go up, but it only went up by 0.3 of a percentage point. Did your salary, did your income go up by 0.3 of a percentage point? And understand there's an underlying problem in this so we talk about the consumer price index being the driver of inflation. The bigger economic problem, from where I sit anyway, is the producer price index. And why is the producer price index more important than the consumer price index? Because it's been going up more. The producer price index is on average a percentage point ahead of the consumer price index increases, which means the makers are spending more to make stuff, and eventually that leads to layoffs. I'm sorry, we just can't keep your position. It's costing us all this to build houses or even truck in the products we're selling at our retail stores. So we talk about the consumer price index because, well, it's what we hear and what we are all feeling when we can't buy as many groceries because the grocery bills. And a reminder, the con game in this is it doesn't include food or fuel, by the way. And the economists say, well, it's because those are volatile commodities, and they're all up 20 to 40%. So when you say, oh, well, it's only up 0.3%, not including fuel or food. So the challenge for you today, kids, lean in here. The challenge for you today is try to spend a day without food or fuel. I know Lent was a few months back, but try to spend a day without using food or fuel. See how you do. Just as since the economists out there, the economists will tell you that, well, we don't include food or fuel costs in the consumer price index because those are volatile. But they're the biggest part of our budgets. And they're way off the grid. Way off the grid. 20, 40%. Which means we're buying 20 or 40% less, which goes back to the producer price index, which again is up higher than the consumer price index. And that, again, not including food or fuel, but fuel mostly. So these folks, who are out there, the makers, or even just the retailers, the folks who have to, help traffic in these goods, they struggle to make ends meet. And again, that leads to more people being out of work. Unemployment's still low. It's the underemployment. Well, do you transition from employed to part-time employed? It's what we've got. And so we're, in some cases, people are losing their incomes altogether. Some of them are just having their incomes severely curtailed just to keep working. And poverty, this is why I always rail when conservatives say poverty, no, that's a Democrat issue. Well, let's not let it be. Let's talk about a free market that allows many. I had a controversial conversation with the publisher of the News Leader just last week in Stanton, and I'll share it with you, and you tell me, because I'm against government mandates regarding ownerships and things like that, but I am also against corporatist cronyism. And perhaps I'm more against corporatist cronyism, because there used to be in broadcasting, and because I'm particularly tuned into this particular world, there used to be a rule a long time ago when I first started in broadcasting that a company could own an AM station and an FM station and a TV station in any given market. You could own those three items in all the markets. See Mr. Kluge, John Kluge, who is really considered the last piece in the puzzle that created the Fox network. Mr. Kluge owned a bunch of TV stations and radio stations from, I believe, Bangor, Maine, all the way down to Washington, D.C. It may have started in Boston. He may have started, but he had an AM station, an FM station, and a TV station in all of these cities, from Boston all the way down Providence and New Haven and Hartford and New York City and Philadelphia and Baltimore and Washington, D.C. And he had all the through, and they were all independent TV stations, all of them doing local news. And generally speaking, they were rock station on the FM and standards, Benny Goodman, stuff like that on the AMs. And they were all similarly formatted, but they all had local people doing their thing. But it was the Metro Media Network. And he had a big network, but he only owned 2 radio stations and a TV station in any given city. And I think that, as with all places, when we lose competition, where the purveyors of a product is just one person here, one person, technically it's competition. But if I don't like either of these two choices, see our discussion about the presidential debate and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. If I don't, well, what's my third alternative? And that's the issue is choice. Choice for businesses, choice for listeners. You still have the same number of radio stations that you had when you had these ownership caps. So you have 25 radio stations and half a dozen TV stations, or a quarter of a dozen, depending on the size of your city. And what are your choices in that matter? If 12 radio stations are owned by this group and 12 are owned by that group, okay. But if you had 20 stations in a radio market and that equaled 10 or 5 different owners, I guess, 10 different owners, well, that's good for business, because I can say, well, I like the way this guy works, so I'm going to work with him. And it creates better listening. So our economy, the producer price index, squeezing businesses out while the bigger chains can fold all these costs in, plus they have the regulatory capture. You see what I mean about how we've allowed this, and we talked about it earlier in the week, this mischaracterization of what the word regulate means. So the government gets to play cronyism. In any event, till tomorrow, we're going to visit with Steve Hayner from the from the Thomas Jefferson Institute, Congressman Good, and maybe some of the 7th District folks on this idea that Abigail Spanberger is the most bipartisan person. Your phone calls, your comments on the YouTube channel as well. Maybe we'll find out what happened at the rest area on I-64 before the show ends tomorrow. But until that time, so long, and thanks for all the fish.